I was 64 years old, and I thought I had it all figured out. But then something happened that I never saw coming. Something that made me realize I'd been living in the shadows of my own life for far too long. I never really felt alive until that moment. There had always been a part of me buried deep inside that I ignored, wishes, dreams, desires I kept hidden. But Bruce, my step-grandson, changed everything. He showed up unexpectedly, and in that moment I questioned myself. What was holding me back all these years? But let me start over and tell you how this all unfolded. It had been 12 long years since my husband David passed away. I'd lived in that silence ever since, lonely, widowed, just going through the motions. And after all this time, I had gotten so used to it that I didn't even realize what I was missing. That morning, something inside me told me it was time to face the one thing I'd been avoiding for years, the basement. The place I'd ignored for as long as I could remember, packed full of memories, dust, and clutter. It was a typical day when I finally decided to clear it out. I'd put it off for so long, and now the thought of it made my chest tighten. But I was determined. That musty room had haunted me for too long, and it was time to deal with it. As I opened the first box, I was immediately taken back to my younger years. Inside was an old photo album. I'd completely forgotten about it, but as I flipped through the pages, I was stopped in my tracks by one particular photo. It was from a beach party I'd attended when I was younger. There I was, holding a margarita, wearing a bright orange bikini and laughing like I had no care in the world. It was me, the carefree young woman I'd long forgotten. Looking at that photo stirred something in me. A mix of warmth and sadness hit me all at once. Those were the years I had let go of, buried so deep inside, and there it was, all rushing back in a single moment. Just as I was lost in those memories, I heard the sound of footsteps from the basement door. I looked up and saw Bruce. It had been 4 years since I last saw him, and he looked so different now, broader, more mature. The familiar smile on his face took me by surprise, and I could tell he had something on his mind. "Surprise," he said, lifting a coffee cup. "Bruce, when did you get here?" I asked, genuinely surprised but happy to see him. "Just now," he replied, walking down the stairs. "Saw your car outside. Figured I'd come in. Looks like you could use some help." I was about to say, "No, I've got it," but before I could, he was already right next to me, his eyes locking on the photo album I was holding. "What's this?" Bruce asked, his curiosity piqued. Before I could grab the album back, he was already staring at the photo of me at the beach. I froze for a moment as his eyes lingered on it, and he asked, "Is this you?" I laughed nervously. "Yeah, that's me from my wild days." Bruce's eyes softened as he looked from the photo back to me. There was a look of admiration in them, a mix of surprise and something deeper that I couldn't quite put my finger on. "Wow," he said slowly. "It's just weird to think of you like this, but it's impressive." His words hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. They made me feel something I hadn't felt in years, seen, really seen. "All right, enough of the walk down memory lane," I said, quickly closing the album and trying to distract myself. "Let's get these boxes out of here." But Bruce stopped me, his hand gently resting on mine. "We really need to look at this," he said, half joking, half serious. "You were so different back then. Come on, let's look a little more." I hesitated. Some of the pictures in that album weren't exactly innocent. There were photos that captured the wilder side of my youth, the things I had buried deep. But Bruce's eyes were filled with such admiration that I couldn't say no. "All right," I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. "But some of these might be a bit much." Bruce chuckled. "I'm sure they're all great." He settled down beside me, the album on his lap, as we started flipping through the pages. The beach party photos were followed by snapshots from my college years, Nights spent at clubs, dancing, laughing, living freely. There was one photo of me in a backless red dress, tipsy, having the time of my life. Bruce paused on that one. "This is really you?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. "Yeah," I replied, feeling a little bashful. "It was just youth, you know. Things were different back then." Bruce didn't say anything for a moment, but when he spoke again, his voice was filled with admiration. "You're incredible." I felt a warmth spread inside me. It was strange, but Bruce's words made me feel something I hadn't felt in ages. He wasn't just seeing me as his grandmother, he was seeing me as me. As we continued through the album, the photos grew bolder. One showed me laughing with friends in shorts and a bikini top. Another had me dancing in a nightclub in a plunging black dress. Bruce's gaze lingered on each one, and I could feel his appreciation. "It's a privilege to see these," he said softly. "Even when you were younger, your beauty was breathtaking. David was one lucky man." His words warmed me, but they also made me feel something else, something I didn't understand. There was a pull between us, an attraction I couldn't ignore. Bruce was unlike David. He was passionate, confident, everything I had once dreamed of. After we reached the last page, Bruce closed the album, but his eyes never left me. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice low and sincere, "you're truly extraordinary." His words hit me harder than I could have imagined. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me like that, said anything so heartfelt. For the first time in a long time I felt alive.